I want to express my strong concern about various countries and a lot of places in the world potentially implementing discriminatory tax laws. These laws that they're thinking about target U.S.-based multinational companies operating particularly in high-tech or the digital industry. Let me be clear right from the outset. These countries, mostly in Europe, should immediately cease any unilateral action that target U.S.-based multinationals. Now, instead, these countries should focus their energy and their efforts on the multilateral solutions that are being developed by the global community operating as the OECD. I'll provide a bit of background for those who haven't been following this issue closely. Recently, the European Commission proposed a 3% digital service tax on the revenues of multinational companies that provide certain digital services to users based in Europe. The tax would not be on profits, but instead on revenues. But the tax is designed, by its design, this proposal would specifically target U.S.-based multilateral or multinational companies. I should make that clear. It would target U.S.-based multinational companies. Implementing such a discriminatory proposal would have required the unanimous approval of the European Union member states. Fortunately for the American companies, the European Union did not go ahead with that proposal. However, some of the European Union nations see a large pot of money that they can extract from U.S.-based multinationals. They're currently taking unilateral steps to implement new digital taxes that are the same as or similar to those proposed by the European Commission that the European Commission has decided not to move forward with. To be clear, these types of taxes are discriminatory. They target U.S.-based multinationals. They will likely result in double taxation, and they will create a new transatlantic trade barrier. These effects will then come just as we head into negotiations for a new trade agreement with the European Union. This is the exact opposite direction that our transatlantic trading relationship should be going. Last October, then Finance Committee Chairman Hatch and Ranking Member Wyden sent a letter to the presidents of the European Council and the European Commission. Hatch and Wyden expressed strong concerns about these indefinite and discriminatory digital services taxes targeting U.S.-based multinational companies. The senators called on the European Union to abandon the proposal and for member states to delay implementing any similar type of digital services tax. Instead, the senators argued that the EU member states should refocus their efforts on reaching consensus on a multilateral solution at the OECD. I happen to concur with the sentiments of those senators and echo the concerns that Hatch and Wyden raised in that letter. In fact, I reinforce those concerns in a letter with the same ranking member Wyden that we sent to the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin just last week. We encourage the U.S. Treasury Department to stay closely engaged with the OECD and the negotiations that are going on in that organization. And Wyden and I urge them to encourage their counterparts at the OECD to abandon any unilateral action and to work together on a consensus solution. OECD members for years have recognized tax challenges surrounding the so-called digitalization of the economy. The issues played a significant role in the OECD's tax base erosion and profit shifting project, and that happened over several years ago. It also was prominent in the 2018 interim report on the tax challenges of the digitalization of the broader economy. Just last week, the OECD released a document outlining at a very high level the timeline for multilateral consideration of the issues and potential paths forward regarding the tax challenges arising from digitalization. I look forward to the Treasury Department participating in this very important negotiation. They would probably be doing it anyway, but we want to reinforce as members and leaders of the Finance Committee our interest in the Treasury Department not letting that slip. And I also engaged nations around the world, or I also encourage nations around the world to participate and allow this process to play out. The alternative is not acceptable because that is discriminatory unilateral action. It is double taxation and has potentially negative trade implications. The results, no good outcomes for countries that impose the taxes, no good outcomes for the countries whose companies are the subject of the tax, mainly this country, the United States. In our letter last week, Ranking Member Wyden and I encouraged Treasury Department officials and their counterparts to reach a consensus on a measured and comprehensive approach to this issue. We also asked the Treasury Department to keep us informed on the solutions that are being developed and progress being made at the OECD. And we shared this letter with Ambassador Robert Lighthizer, since he is tasked with leading our trade negotiations with the European Union. Given that the Finance Committee has jurisdiction over tax and trade matters, my colleagues and I will have views on the United States position taken on the OECD negotiations. We all want to see a good outcome for both the US-based multinational companies and for the United States tax base. We must avoid international tax chaos where significant double taxation is the norm. This is in the interest of the United States, and I hope other countries around the world will reach the conclusion that it is in their interest as well. Other countries should not view participation of the United States in this OECD exercise simply as an academic or a delay tactic. On the contrary, the United States has shown that it takes action on a multilateral initiatives, limitations on interest deductibility, and anti-hybrid rules are just a few examples of the items enacted into U.S. tax law. And the Treasury Department and the Internal Revenue Service took regulatory action on various other initiatives. I think it is worth reiterating that I am invested in this process and in reaching a viable, long-term, multilateral solution. I look forward to staying in close contact with the Treasury Department as the negotiations progress. I also intend to bring up in the Finance Committee issues related to this OECD negotiations and the Treasury Department's positions. And if appropriate, we will look into legislative or other actions to address solutions reached at the OECD, as well as unilateral actions that are taken by other countries. I yield the floor.